Right, there's no one else at the door, so I'm going to get started. This session is set for 40 minutes. Some of it is me going to be talking, and I'm going to close the doors now so none of you can escape because it's a little bit interactive. So, yeah, sorry, we're all stuck. We're locked in, unfortunately. However, I do appreciate if you are not a confident speaker and if you are not a confident participant in a room full of people that you don't know. However, I assume Shelter Hall made sure that you actually got to know everyone else last night. Who went to Shelter Hall? Fantastic. Who went to Shelter Hall and lasted till 10? 11? 12? Who was in Molly Malone's until 3 o'clock in the morning? No, unfortunately, after yesterday, I drove home to Portsmouth just in time to get my 4-year-old to bed because I hadn't seen her for 2 nights, to read her The Tiger That Came for Tea. If anyone knows that book by Judith Kerr, it is a... Pardon?
The tiger that can't come for tea.
Yeah, oh, the tiger that came for tea. I'm gonna do that and see if she prefers the story. I'm not great at accents. So I managed to get her to bed and I managed to do my son's science homework. And then I dropped them to early breakfast school this morning and came back down to Brighton. So unfortunately, I didn't make Shelter Hall. However, it is usually one of my favourite events of the year, as well as the MCAD conference as well. So thank you for coming to this workshop. This was something when I was talking to Aid and the team to put in, he said, Holly, would you be interested in running a workshop? And I said, yeah, but what do you want it on? Like, we could do something quite technical. I could do something to do with security. I even offered to do some sort of threat modelling assessment for people with AI. And he said, well, no, your talk's on AI. I said, okay, well, last year I did a talk on neurodiversity. Did you want something that followed that? And he said, no. And I said, I've got an idea. A lot of people in technology are introverts. Me, I'm an introverted extrovert. Actually, if you know me and outside of being on a stage, I'm a very quiet, outgoing, but I prefer my own company sometimes. I like sitting in rooms and just reading books. I love nothing more than my own company, to be quite honest. And working in the technical field, I know that there are lots of other people that are absolutely petrified of public speaking. They like talking about their technical subject, but they can become uncomfortable when it's to an audience they don't know, or if it's an audience they do know, like their workforce, but it still petrifies them. Now, I came up with this idea that we can start talking about the impacts of voice, value, and visibility, and how to build your career, not just that one-off talk, but actually your career with the art of influence. There we go. So here's a statistic, and my bad, yesterday I did a talk and I didn't put my sources in. And that's really naughty of me because I've had a career in academia before. So if you don't trust me, it's down at the bottom. 74%, and we get to that statistic by 75% of women and 73% of men, suffer with speech anxiety. So we get to this lovely round of 74%. And that's just the general population. What can cause speech anxiety? One is putting yourself out there on your own. Now, as humans, we don't like being alone, apart from me most nights. And I just wish that my loving children that I just spoke about would just leave me alone. And the reason is because it makes us prey. We're used to safety in numbers. We're pack animals. We like being with our friends, our colleagues. We like to be justified. We like to be known. So when we're up here and there's lots of people looking at you, and just to let you know, if you're usually on a stage, you can't see people because the lights are so bright usually. But that puts us in a state of, hey, I'm out here on my own. Some people actually thrive off this. Now, I'm the latter half. I love doing this now, but only because I was the first half and I learned how to get comfortable. Learned how to be uncomfortable, then I got to be comfortable. And my first piece of advice to you is, should you find yourself at a public speaking opportunity or something where you're going to have to give a talk to a lot of people, it could even be on Teams, the first thing, if you're nervous, is tell everyone you're nervous. One, because if I'm the prey, you're the ones who are going to eat me. So if I tell you straight away and I show you my vulnerability, do you know what you all do? You go, oh, they're nervous. And you actually become more accommodating if I fluff up. The second is if I do fluff up and I do get brain fog, which if any of you have seen me talk before, I do a lot. I get quite bad brain fog due to a medical condition, so it happens quite a lot. I own it and I say, hold on, I forgot what I was talking about. How many of you would actually be scared to say that? And if you did freeze, you would instantly see that as a barrier. You'd instantly think, oh my goodness, I'm completely messing this up. If you give yourself the permission and you let everybody know, hold on, my thought's just gone. Hold on, I'm having a moment. Can you grant me a second? Then go back and start off. Most of the time, that's going to get you started again. You could hit that brain fog because someone's either caught your eye, someone's done something that's made you laugh or have a second thought, or because your nerves are so crippling that the cortisol is running through your body. And hopefully, all of you are just lowered in cortisol if you attend Jasmine's session this morning on burnout. I heard it was a fantastic session and everybody felt much more relaxed. So your cortisol is running through your body, your stress hormone, and your body's constantly trying to get rid of that stress, that it can only do so much. Okay, so to talk about influence and how we're going to get there, I wanted to frame it in a way that is going to be a bit of a journey. So this is the 3 V's framework. Firstly, we're going to talk about our voice, our physical voice. And that means, how do you communicate both your ideas, your opinions, and your values? Your true values, what you truly think and what you feel, not what you think others are going to want to hear. Secondly, is the value of what you're saying. How many of us have been in a meeting and someone talks just to talk? Just to say something. It's like AI, isn't it? It's got to say something. And one, they just make that meeting go on for longer than it should do. You find it impractical, and actually it gives you a negative view of that person. So always ensure, if you are going to say something, think of that value. Although the reason lots of people say those fillers is to build relationships and to build humour, what they're actually doing is they're feeling a bit like prey. They're actually trying to build relationships with the person, or they're a little bit narcissistic and think it's about them. And your value, your voice with your value, is how we're then going to develop some impact on what your contribution is. How many of you have been in a meeting and you've had something to say, or you've had an idea and you want to say it, not sure how to say it, and then you sit on it, and then someone else will say it. Someone else will gain from it. Or you say it to someone else because you didn't want to say it to the big meeting, and then they act on it. I've been there, and that's frustrating, but it also chips away at you a little bit as well. And then the last one. This is the one that's the hardest of all of them. Once we've actually found our voice and we find our value and we find the important way to frame what we've got to say, how do we make ourselves visible? Particularly when we like to stay a little bit invisible. How do others see you? How do they experience your leadership in what you think you're doing and what you're truly doing and the impact you want to make? So, most tech leaders hesitate to speak unless they are 100% true and confident in what they're going to say. That's what I've found. That because we're quite analytical in our approach, And if you've ever studied the colour methodology of personality types, lots of techies are the blue colour. The blue colour means that we like to analyse things, we like to have things referenced. Point taken, there was a reference when I did a statistic. And I do take that I was mortified in myself that I didn't. But we like to see, we only like to really speak up when we have 100% clarity and we're 100% certain. But leadership is about stepping forward. It's not waiting for that perfection. So, how many of us have actually taken a step back as we're starting to move, or we are already a leader? And just show of hands, who's already a leader in their teams? Okay, how many of us want to be leaders or want to go further? Okay, how many of you have actually looked at your leadership style? What type of leader am I already, and where do I want to be? How many of us have read really cool self-help books? The military ones are the best, by the way. I'm not just saying that because I'm ex-military, but actually if you do want to do some further reading, start leading into military-style leadership books, and none of them are coming to the front of my mind at the moment, having read so many. But actually look at what is my leadership style? I want you to now start thinking and write it down. What have you seen, not just in your career, but think back to school, think back to parenting, think back to friendship groups, think back to those positive relationships that you have had with your peers, educators, and leaders. What snippets can you piece together that you can identify and see in yourself and move forward? How many of us are too scared to speak up in meetings? Okay. There is a million reasons for that. How many of us are scared to speak up in meetings when they're nothing about what we know or an area of business we don't really work in? So when it's outside of technical, we're in a meeting, like a town hall. That's when it starts. That confirms that first point when I said when it's not our area and we're not 100%, take the techies out of technical and look what happens. Oh, like scared guinea pigs sometimes. And that's me. Start small. We are, as we said, confident about when we're talking about our subject and when we're within our peers and that we're accepted. I'm asking you to be the annoying person now that has to say something. Because I want you to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Scratch that surface, scratch off what that uncomfortable feeling looks like. And to say or make an observation if you've got nothing to say. Just by raising your voice and making a habit of raising your voice in a tone that is comfortable to you. So you don't have to ask a question. You don't have to say something that's quite pertinent. Just make an observation. As the meeting's going through, make your observation and just make it known at the end. Raise your voice and take up your space. And the best way to use your voice, and this one is a talk that I did beginning of the year, is the art of storytelling. Jasmine and I actually had a walk along the beach this morning, and believe it or not, she'd never heard of the tiger that went to tea, the tiger that came for tea. And word for word, I told her the story. And even at the end, a children's story, Jasmine said, "Isn't it so relaxing?" And there is something about storytelling that us as humans, whether it reminds us of being as a child, but we find it insightful, we find it exciting. So when we've got something to say, and unfortunately, groundbreaking news, a lot of the stuff technology teams have to say aren't exciting for other audiences. I'm sorry. It can actually be quite boring for them. However, that doesn't mean that it's not important information. Think of how, and I'm going to come into this in value a little bit as well. Think of how we can use storytelling, where we are, where we need to be, and the journey we got to get there. How do we do that? Unfortunately, that's supposed to be there. I've messed them up a little bit. How do you do that? Use analogies. A lot of what we speak about, unfortunately, no one understands, or they don't understand the impact. So in my world of cybersecurity, I talk about real dystopian threats, and everyone goes, yeah, it's not actually going to happen, is it? It's not really that bad. Or they don't understand when I say malware, they're like, that's a funny word. Don't know what that means. DDoS. Oh, no. Fishing. Yeah, I like to go fishing on the weekends. Make it analogies. Make it relatable. Make it human. Because unfortunately, in technology, we are still quite separated. As much as people are interested, thereabouts, make it so that they understand. And using analogies and in a storytelling way is going to make your audience want to listen more and also make it easier for them to follow. Practice your clarity. I'm going to make you do something, or hope that you do this. When you next go back to your room, I want you to talk to yourself in the lift. Don't worry, you get enough time in case the floor stops. I want you to practice almost every time you're in a lift. Look at yourself in the mirror and say something. Pitch an idea. If you've got a meeting coming up, in 60 seconds, even 30 seconds, I want you to start saying something in a lift. One, because it's like when you sing in a shower, it sounds really good because it's a small room, so the acoustics are great. But it's practicing saying something out loud that's going to make you uncomfortable. When you're in a lift, you're uncomfortable because you're looking at the door saying, right, Holly's told me I've got to say something, and that door is going to open at any time. Or someone could be listening to me, and then they're thinking, what is this person doing? Promise you, there's cameras in a lift, but they only switch on an intercom if you're in trouble. So no one can hear you. But again, it's giving yourself permission in a safe environment to feel uncomfortable. How many of you ever thought of doing that before? How many people do that? Do you talk to yourself in lifts? There we go.
I talk to myself in the bathroom.
You talk to yourself? Absolutely. We self-coach ourselves. I love to self-coach. I give myself pep talks in the mirror. Brilliant. I'm going to make sure I'm in the lift next to you next time. I love that. But isn't the acoustics fantastic? Isn't the acoustics fantastic? That's a great way for you to start practicing and just building a little bit of self-confidence. And this is the most important one for me. To use your voice, listen. Influence starts when you start understanding your audience, when you start understanding people or persons. So how I would talk, and naturally how I would talk to my CEO is different to how I would talk to my partner. But my CEO, like I didn't reference this, if I don't have graphs, numbers, money, if I don't have graphs, impact, digestible data and sources, he's not listening. Listen to how people, and if they don't give you that information, ask for it. I know I'm going to give you this presentation soon. How would you like, or what would you specifically like to see delivered? That's going to take that anxiety it's going to take that anxiety away from you in what content am I going to create and is this good enough? If you simply ask that question. I'm going to deliver this presentation. This is the brief we've had, or this is what I need to tell you. How do you want that delivered and what do you need out? What are you going to get out of it? Do you prefer pictures? Do you like the old cat meme? Do you like to have graphs? Would you rather me have lots of information on slides, or would you like an appendix? Ask the question, so that then your voice doesn't get wasted. Because so many of the times we think we're communicating clearly to our audience, but how do we know if we haven't asked? Next one, the value. The value in what you've actually got to say, because I'm going to believe you that what you've got to say has got value, okay? No matter what you've got to say, it will always have value because it's your personal opinion or it's your job, it's your business, but we've just got to make sure that the other people know that we've got to say it to. So the first way to do this, we're talking within your career, so within business now, or if you're going to want to venture into public speaking, align it with business goals. Align it with business impact. Align it with the audience's world. So for my CEO, it's how the company is going to grow. If I was going to give something to human resources in the world of cybersecurity or AI, I'm going to make it about employee well-being. I'm going to keep drawing little pockets back that may not actually have anything to do with the presentation, might be related to a news article, that actually keeps them interested in what I've got to say in a subject they don't really understand. Quantify your outcomes and not just your outputs. What I mean by that, make sure that, oh my God, I've rehearsed this and I've forgotten what I was going to say. Told you it would happen. Right. Look at what your outcomes are, so everything, rather than just always data-driven. What else? What else actually happened? What else can we make in other areas? And always ask yourself, what changed because I was here? Give yourself some credit, even if it wasn't something that you anticipated to happen. Let's just say you will work in technical environments, which means you've got some relationship with a bit of cybersecurity and your company gets hit by a bit of ransomware. You're going to make some sort of positive change, even though everything's on fire, you're on fire. If you've ever lived through a ransomware attack, it is hard work. Ask yourself, what changed because I was here? And think critically. Always give yourselves the positives. I did that. I recognised that. I contributed to my team. Leaders, I want you to think, how are you supporting your team, not just professionally, but personally? Because of you, that person is going home and they're feeding their family. You may not be personally paying that money into their pocket, unless some of you are business owners. But because of your mentorship and because of the opportunity that you gave them, because you must have interviewed them if they're part of your team, or if you're new into position, you're growing them. You're growing them like little tomato plants you bought off the side of the road at a village fair. And that's because of you. And then second, whilst you're doing all of that, I'm now going to give you some conflicting advice and say, but share it without arrogance. Don't make it all about you. But sharing without arrogance is one of the most important things here when developing your leadership style, that you don't make your leadership style all about you and your growth. That's one of the most important things I can say about leadership, because leadership actually isn't about you completely. It's actually about how far your team and your outcomes and anyone you touch travels with you. So influential leaders, they know how to frame their wins. You don't brag, but you're educating others on what is possible. When you're talking about your outcomes and your outputs, don't say, I, we did this. If you did something that you're particularly proud about, then absolutely credit yourself, because unfortunately, we don't credit ourselves very well as humans. And we all get a bit shy, like, oh no, it was nothing, even though you just built this fantastic app that's going to save humanity from an alien invasion. Oh, don't worry about it, just did it in my sleep. Now, talking about giving credit generously. How do you give credit? How many people give credits in one-to-ones? Do they really say, you have done fantastic in this area? The person hasn't. Some people went, even if they haven't, they went, oh, no, if they haven't done it, I don't give them credit. Still recognize, even if it is a disciplinary, a warning, still give this person credit. Because otherwise, they're going to have what we refer to as rejection-sensitive dysphoria. And everyone has that. It's the fear of being rejected. And if you're neurodivergent, you have that really high. It's that ultimate fear. And when we're receiving negative information, we become like a wounded dog. And if anyone comes at us, we kind of want to snap back, or we don't want any support and any help. And what you don't want to do is make that them person become unreachable. So always give credit, and give credit generously. What can credit look like? Let's think of some that we don't often think about. If someone says something fantastic in a meeting, always thank them. And don't always thank them straight after they've said it, because they know they've said something great, because that's why they've said it. unless they're doing some leadership coaching that I've done a talk at, and then they're just saying it to take up some space. But say it to them in a passing, oh, that message you brought up in the Teams meeting, really great, thanks. Because that will instantly make them go, oh, people are noticing I said something great. It gives them that credit. And it shows that you're actually making and paying attention to your team in areas sometimes they may not think that you are. Other ways to give credit, which isn't always about work focused, admire the way that they do things that aren't part of their job. Show, and this is for the developing leaders in the room, when you start learning your team and you learn little snippets about their life outside, so, you know, I'm not just Holly in cyber, I'm Holly with children, and I mean, all I do is work and have kids. What else do I do that's quite cool?
Ex-military.
There we go. Yeah, I'm ex-military. Have a cool dog. Learn little snippets about someone and give them credit for that. Give them credit for things that aren't always about their job, because actually that helps build that person and it shapes you to be, remember that leadership, that influential leadership? They'll remember that in 5 years' time. When we think back to our influential leaders, how many of us thought of a teacher, that we had a teacher in our life that really made an impact to us? Mine was my year 4 teacher. She was great, Miss Bowen. And years later, she actually reached out to me on Facebook and she said, are you my little Holly Foxcroft? I was like, oh my gosh, you remember me. I must have been really bad. But when we think of our leaders, we actually think about how they made that extra difference. And sometimes influential isn't always about the huge, profound things that we've got to say. It's those small, minor things that we notice. And number 3, I've actually already mentioned this, but this is one of my golden nuggets. And this is, I've said it in voice, but actually this adds more value. When you talk about anything in Teams or in your physical meetings and you're talking about projects, quite often we can say I, because it's from your perspective. But even if it was something that you did, still credit your team and still credit the wider audience and pull people in to what you've got to say. It's like an invitation. Use we instead of I at any opportunity, because it helps people actually feel connected to the content that you're delivering. Now, this one is what scares most people, because too many times tech leaders like to be a bit invisible. Or we like to be, oh yeah, that's the one who's really techie and really great at their job, but you know, they don't want to go and be the forefront of this company and talk on stages and put themselves forward for public speaking events. They just prefer to exist, be great at their job, and that's fine. But some of us not want to stand on stages and become this character that people can use, etc., as, oh, look, they're great, become some sort of celebrity, minor celebrity. No, it's because we know that we've got value and it's an area of our career we want to explore. But if no one knows what you do, no one knows what you do. If you've got a LinkedIn profile, but that's it, you don't usually go on there, you usually like what other people are doing, it's social media, isn't it? How do people talk and promote you? Visibility is about your intentional presence. How you intentionally, I want you to think now, how are you intentionally making yourself be an influential leader? What practices are you doing? How many of you post regularly on LinkedIn? Hands. How many of you regularly post on LinkedIn about stuff that isn't to do with your job? I posted a picture of me riding a penny farthing in a dress downstairs on the shop floor last night. I see that as quite an accomplishment. I said I was adding it to my CV. But what I'm doing is I'm actually very intentionally doing that, because I'm making myself personable. I thought it was funny. Some other people thought it was funny, and some people share my humour, so I knew that, and I knew it's quite a lot. Like, we take ourselves very seriously, and we work in very demanding roles. Everyone works in a demanding role. Unfortunately, the capitalist environment that we've all built ourselves to live in, unfortunately, means we are in demand as humans. And many of us don't work for ourselves, we work for organisations, which means we are in demand. And unfortunately, the technical team, we're always chasing something, whether that's tickets, whether that's budget. That's the big one, budget. We're in demand. So how many of us actually start to show our personal side, or we start to add our own character into our posts on LinkedIn? Some of us think that when we post on LinkedIn, we have to be this real professional, and yes, you do to an extent. But how many of us add our own character into our LinkedIn posts? Add a joke. Add a side of yourself you're not too scared to show and that you do share with your teams, but you're not going to show, well, practically the whole world if it's on LinkedIn and it's open source.
Well, I don't use LinkedIn for that.
No.
I use other social media.
You use other social medias.
But I won't do it professionally when it's scary and people.
But why?
Because I'd get fired.
Okay, what are you saying on your other social medias? But have you ever thought of adding just a small side? Because you're not going to get fired unless you're saying something really bad, then unfortunately I am not going to accept anything that any fallback on that. But none of us are bad people, I hope. And you're not, because you all work in tech, and tech are lovely people. Add some character, add some depth. Not just technical jargon. And although we use LinkedIn for learning from each other and community, but do you not find in tech, and we find this by coming to events like this, that actually community is one of our strongest tools? Asking other people, quizzing other people, do you find it finally someone who's sharing my problem? LinkedIn is an extension of that. But also, when I do early careers talk, I tell them to go on LinkedIn and follow the leaders. How are they going to follow you if you don't have presence? If you want to be that influential leader, you don't have to come up with quotes every single day. You don't have to post every single day. Once a week is what statistics tell you to do. Once a week, you can make it relevant. You can even repost. It doesn't even have to be your content. Add a repost and your thought, an observation again. Taking a step out of the shadows into being more visible, which obviously multiplies your voice and value. Anyway, and it's not about being flashy. I am not asking you, and neither is the whole of LinkedIn, for every week for you to go, oh my God, it's a Monday, right, I schedule my posts for a Wednesday lunchtime, because that's when ChatGPT told me is the best time to post on LinkedIn. What am I going to write about? You don't need to constantly reinvent the wheel just to make a post. It doesn't always need to be about the same thing. It can be about another area of tech that interests you. It can be about asking for people's opinion, generating conversation. Has anyone else found they prefer apples to bananas? I'm aware this is an Apple conference on Apple, so I was trying to think of something and then I couldn't think of what. I mean, you can't say, does anyone prefer Apple to Android, because that would just go up in flames, wouldn't it? But you could. Ask the conversation. What are the problems that people find here? What user difficulties? I'm doing some personal research. Can someone talk to me about this? People love to talk, and generate that content. Keep the conversation going. Volunteer for cross-functional work. How many of you do charity work? Or how many of you would like to do charity work, but unfortunately, because we work in tech, we don't have time to do charity work? Yeah, I think we would all love that. And if anyone didn't put their hand up, you bad people, do charity work. But we can do that within cross-functions of our teams, showing an interest in what they do. And this is going to be really hard because outside of tech, none of it's really very interesting, I promise you. I work across the whole business. Apart from sales, I like going down to sales. They're just so vibrant all the time. But volunteer for some cross-functional or supporting. One, because it's going to make you visible in your organisation. It's going to make you visible as a leader within your field that you work in. It's going to give you a deeper understanding of the business and how to have business impact. Just say, I would like to just learn what you do. So find your counter across the business and say, I think it'd be really valuable if I could just have a meeting, have a coffee with you and really learn and understand about what you do. Or find someone within a different organisation. I notice we do similar things. We share a little virtual coffee. I'm scaring the life out of so many people here because they're thinking, I would never do that in a million years, Holly. Why? Do it with me. Say, Holly, have you got 20 minutes? Always. Talk to you about the world of cybersecurity at One Advanced. Tell you what we're finding. Let's share, let's collaborate. Have comfortable conversation. How many of us have internal events and town halls? Big ones. How many of us are speaking at them at will? That's a different one. Ask. I would really like to speak at this event. I don't know what to speak about. Oh, don't worry, ChatGPT's got your back there. Say what the town hall is. Say roughly what your area of work is. Don't put too much data about what your company does and all the secret squirrel stuff. But AI is actually being used more, and if you were at my talk yesterday, you'd know I used this, in 2024, and I'm going to have to get this statistic because I don't have it on this slide. In 2024, we have found that the uses of AI are actually being used more as personal companions. We're using them as a chip the paperclip. So ask it. I work in this, got a town hall on this. What can I talk about? Gives you ideas. Fantastic. I use it all the time. Especially with brain fog. Helps out a lot. And now, I've put this as the last, and I spoke about it at the front. I'm always getting a bit skew-whiff. Now, use your LinkedIn or Slack, because tech audience and that. So not everyone has the LinkedIn because it's how recruiters find them based on what they do on their job, but they use the Slack to talk about their interesting stuff. Share your learning and resources. If you're learning about something really interesting, if you've read a really interesting book recently, if you've read a really interesting article, if you found out something that tech can do or that you found and you want to share it, that you can share, and you don't have to make this really big, pretty post about, again, how you've reinvented the wheel, but with Apple Macs this time. Pop it on LinkedIn, pop it on Slack, and make yourself visible. And this is your cycle. The more you're going to use your voice, your physical voice, the more you are going to show and credit your value. The more you demonstrate your value, the more visible you are going to become. And the more visible you are going to become, the more influence that you are going to gain. I'm not saying that all of you aren't influential now, because you are. And you have, a lot of people don't realise the influence they have on others. Sometimes just by being next to someone can be influential. Just complimenting someone, acknowledging a nod, recognise you. Right? It's much easier when we've got landlords on. Go, oh yeah, that's a McCaddy over there. And repeat this. Keep thinking to yourself, when am I using my voice? When can I add and build on my value? When can I actually, I don't know that. I'm going to find out more. I'm going to increase my value. Now shut the doors, because no one's allowed to escape. I want to start practicing using our voice. And this is something that I learned at Stanford University in the US. How many of us have done improvisation before? How many of us are absolutely petrified right now?
Talk about music or talk?
No, this is just about talking. It is fun. It is fun. I want us to start practicing all of those three things: our voice, our value in what we're going to say, and our visibility. Because we're going to really put ourselves out there now, aren't we? We're going to talk in front of everyone else. If anyone does feel uncomfortable or doesn't want to go, just do an X. I completely understand. Yes, and. Has anyone played this? Okay, this is either going to go horrifically wrong. I did do a trial with Aid and Alex. I mean, it went very well, and it was very funny. One person starts by making a simple statement. I've chosen this one. Let's build an app that translates cat meows into English. And then I'm looking at you, but don't worry, you don't have to go first. The next person, yes, and And then they're going to add on to the idea. Yes, and it will send notifications to their human when their cat is hungry. Keep it going, yes, and to each new idea, keep it light, creative, and fun. The idea and why we say yes is because it sends a positive signal to the brain. So we'll actually start getting our brains fired, which will hopefully start building into that value. Is anyone really scared right now? Does anyone want to volunteer? Because I'm going to go first, and I'm going to need someone else to go next. And then I'm going to volunteer for the second, third. Okay, so now we've got a little pipeline, and I'm going to need you to think who's going to be brave enough to stand up to say yes and. And I want us to really start thinking of our projection here. Yes. And even if you haven't thought about what you're going to say, that and can be as drawn out as you like it to be. Shall we start with this one, or shall I think of something else? A new one?
No, let's start with the cat one.
People have started planning their answers for cats. Okay, right, let's go. Let's build an app that translates cat meows into English.
Yes, and we're going to make it so that it also translates it into dog barks.
Fantastic.
Yes, and we are going to develop it whilst riding penny farthings.
Yes, we are, and we're going to develop it while riding penny farthings. Who's going to be my next person to stand up and yes and that?
Yes, and it needs to be accessible for all users.
Good one.
Yes, and we would also like to make it accessible for cats and dogs.
Okay, this app is going to be really. Okay, I'm going to start with something new now, so we're not just talking about cats and dogs, but I love the fact that already someone actually thought of accessibility in that. That's fantastic, and that is an influential leader. It's not just thinking about themselves. They're actually thinking about who else is going to be invited to that conversation. There are people outside, and I think I'm about to run out of time. But we're just going to do one more round. Let me try and think of one that's going to get the conversation. Or has anyone else got an idea? It doesn't have to be me. Who else wants to start? Think of an idea. And I'll follow it. I'll go second. That's the hardest part.
We're going to make an app that turns meeting notes into songs.
Yes. And we'll be able to change the genre based on how we're feeling in that time.
Yes, and we'll be able to share it across all social media platforms on one click.
Yes, and with the photos taken of that meeting, it can be made as a video.
Fantastic.
Yes, and it can be added to playlists with other songs from other meetings.
Great.
Yes, and it would be translated into multiple languages.
Yes, and I want to be a millionaire.
Great. I can see that people are going to be joining the next meeting now. So I want to trust yourself. I want to thank you, and I want you to trust yourself. Don't wait for permission. Influential starts with consistent action. Pick one area out of voice, value, and visibility. Take one step this week. Leadership isn't a title, it is a habit and a responsibility. Remember that you have a story, you have influence, and the question is whether you choose to use it and how intentionally you craft your path. So be bold, be clear, and the last one is to be visible. Thank you very much.